treat strangers better than your own family members? Ruschelle Khanna is going to answer this question, and she is a therapist and consultant to families in enterprise for over 20 years. And she's also author of the book Inherited Trauma and Family Wealth. Thanks for being with me.
Kimberly, thanks so much for having me back. I'm very excited to see you again, and we had so much fun the last time. So let's do it.
So, Ruschelle, why do we often treat strangers better than family?
Well, Kimberly, that is a great question, and it's one that I hear a lot in my practice. And the short and sweet answer is that when we have dysfunctional patterns in our families, these these interactions get inverted. So our family is supposed to be the place where we have the best and closest relationships, different from people who are further out in our world, like strangers. But when there has been abuse or trauma or just dysfunctional patterns, that gets inverted, and we're often better to people further away from us than our family.
So, I've heard you talk about the cycles of chaos as one of the five liabilities of a family business. What is it? Tell us about it.
Yes. So the cycles of chaos are one of the five. And these five are the five different ways that you or your family members might respond to stress or difficult times. So one of those ways, you might have one family member that's like just prone to conflict, maybe really defensive. So they would be that first liability of trauma, somebody who's like a chaos maker. And then if you have more of those in your family business, then you're in real trouble.
So, what are some of the signs and maybe questions you can ask yourself or your family to see if this pattern needs to be addressed? So, when is it
Sure.
normal and then it's beyond and problematic?
Okay, so there are ways to handle conflict well, right? Like it's a goal of our families that we can work through things in a way where everybody feels satisfied and secure and loved. And so that's one way to have conflict. Conflict will be there. So we're not going to be able to avoid it. But there are ways to fight that are healthy. And then there are ways to fight that are really just continuous pain for us in our relationships. So some questions you might kind of think through. It's like, does our family extend courtesy to strangers more than it does our own family members? Are we more lenient or extend more grace to people that are not in our family? Maybe we're more critical. Maybe we constantly don't want to be like our family members. Families that have unity, like the families that wear the same T-shirts on a family vacation, right? There's like those families, and then there are families who are like, I don't want to be like you. It's like a rejection of the tribe that is meant to be there. Um, do you or your family members seek approval from people outside your family more than the influence of your own family? So, a strong family business, members influence each other, they accept each other's influence, they listen and they respect. So, if you're always going out and getting input and not interested in what your family has to say, that might be a sign that there's more these cycles of chaos. Um, and then are you able to extend basic compassion outside rather than with your own family? Are you very harsh with your language with your family? Yeah. So those
So,
are
why do we tend to be harder? We tend to be harder on our own family than, those outside.
yeah, well, I'm going to take it way back to maybe the first reason is that when we're little, we hopefully can come home to our families when we're children, and it's safe to have tantrums there. Like if you have a 5-year old and the teacher says your 5-year old's amazing, they're always so well behaved. And the mom's like, well, why are they such a monster when they get to the house? So our homes are a place where we should be able to be more vulnerable, open, and even decompress a little bit. But as we get older, sometimes that turns into um, disrespect, lack of boundaries, and not taking into account the other person's perspective. So it's kind of a catch, right? We should be able to be more emotional at home. And sometimes that turns out not so great.
So, what are some of your tips from, obviously going from adolescence and any of us who have a teenager at home, we've been abused. Like, when do you know it's like, no, this is normal behavior versus, I don't know if it's an age or versus, we need to change our patterns.
Well, Kimberly, that question brings up another type of inversion, which is the parent-child inversion. And that would be when parents have not set really firm understandings about respect in the home, and the children have kind of usurped the parent. They can speak poorly to them. So that's another inversion as well. So what I start with most families is having a family manifesto. And whether or not you have young children or you're just starting to do this in family therapy as adults, what are the rules here? And in these families, we're unaware of the unspoken rules. So we need to make them spoken. You know, an unspoken rule would be it's okay to name call our family. Well, is that okay? Let's think about that. Is it really okay to name call people in your family? And so the manifesto might include we're a family that always speaks kind to one another and doesn't name call. So the rules and the boundaries that are unspoken need to be made spoken. So we need to start talking about them.
So, what would you say to a family who they have these high levels of disrespect and disregard? That was great advice. So, even go further.
Okay. Well, if you are in a family business or you have teenagers or anything, sometimes conflict is really, really high. And to separate, to just not be around each other for a while to make space is probably the first thing to start with. Now, that's hard if you run a business together, but you can start verbalizing, let's not talk about this right now. Let's save this for our family mediation sessions. Let's save this for Friday at 3 p.m. when we're not stressed. So putting up those some distance and some guardrails and making space for the conversations. Um, and then I also, if people are in families where there's a lot of conflict, I want to tell people that if you have support come in and help you with those, 99% of the time, we have resolvable problems. It's very rare that I have ever worked with a family that they couldn't find their ways out of cycles of chaos. And I think when people are in those cycles, they think this is unsolvable. This is never going to get better. And it is just not true. A lot of times, a little bit of attention can make the whole dynamic better.
So, before I leave you, I'm assuming this will resonate with a lot of people. What's maybe even just one simple thing we could easily do to hopefully be kinder and better to our families, especially when we're stressed or we're, in a bad moment? What's one thing we can all do to be better?
Well, I'm going to give you two things.
Oh, good.
You're going to you're going to slow down, and you might even say, let's slow down. And then you're going to just be curious. What was that about? You know, what was that tone that you used? What's going on? If somebody is being defensive, we can always just say, let's take a minute. And what did I do that made you defensive? Let's clear up any misperception that happened there.
Oh, that's very good advice. Well, thank you so much again, Rochelle. I'm sure we'll be speaking again. And I'm Kim
Yes.
Eddleston with feelingbusiness.org. Thank you so much.